She was a ghost inside her own skin, a living mistake shaped by cruelty long before she ever understood the word. From the first breath she took, Miriam existed as something the world could not place, could not accept, and did not wish to understand. On this night in 1748, beneath the heavy sky of colonial Virginia, Miriam, the albino slave, made a decision that would split her life into before and after. She would bleed no more, she would cry no more, she would beg no more. Instead, she would make the cotton master bleed, and she would make it slow enough for every second to matter. This is not a story meant to soften history or make it easier to swallow. It is not a clean tale told in classrooms or written gently in books. It is a story of revenge shaped like justice, of ancient fury carried through blood and memory, waiting for the moment it could finally speak. It is a story that time tried to bury because it does not bow to polite lies. If you are drawn to stories hidden in shadows, to voices that history tried to silence, then you are in the right place. Remember to leave your like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you do not miss stories that were never meant to be told out loud. And tell me, from which city and state are you watching right now? Comment below. I read every single one. To understand the fury that burned inside Miriam on that night in 1748, we must first understand the slow violence that shaped every hour of her life. Virginia was not simply a colony. It was a living body that fed on pain. Since the first slave ships arrived at Jamestown in 1619, something dark had taken root in the land. A system grew strong on profit and cruelty, watered by blood, protected by law and custom. Plantations spread across the countryside like open wounds, fields of cotton, tobacco, and rice glowing green beneath the sun. From a distance they looked peaceful. Up close, they were hell. Slavery was not an idea debated in faraway rooms. It was flesh and bone. It lived in the snap of whips tearing skin, in iron biting ankles, in backs bent until they broke. It was the smell of sweat soaked into dirt, the taste of dust that never left the mouth, the sound of muffled cries carried away by the wind. Enslaved people were stripped of names, families, memories. Humanity itself became dangerous, something to be hidden or punished. On the vast estate owned by Master Elias Thornfield lived Miriam. Her birth was marked by contradiction. She was born to parents stolen from the western coast of Africa, people whose skin was dark and rich, whose ancestors had lived under burning suns for generations. Yet Miriam entered the world pale as winter snow she would never see. Her hair was light like dry straw. Her eyes were a thin, almost colorless blue that unsettled anyone who met her gaze for too long. Her albinism made her an error in the eyes of everyone around her. Among the enslaved community, Miriam was feared as much as she was pitied. Some whispered that she was cursed. Others said she was a spirit wearing human skin, a sign of bad fortune. Children stared and then ran away when she approached. Adults kept their distance, afraid her difference would bring attention, punishment, or worse. Miriam learned early that loneliness could hurt as deeply as hunger. She grew up watching other children play together, laugh together, belong together. While she stood at the edge of every group, unseen and unwanted, she learned to be quiet, to take up as little space as possible, to disappear even while standing in plain sight. Only one person never turned away from her. Her younger brother Samuel saw her as nothing more or less than his sister. He held her hand when others would not. He slept beside her at night when fear crept into the dark corners of the quarters. He trusted her completely, without question or doubt. To Miriam, Samuel was not just family. He was proof that love could still exist in a world built to destroy it. To Master Elias Thornfield, Miriam was something else entirely. She was not a child, she was not a girl, she was not even fully human in his eyes. She was a curiosity, a living object that made him feel powerful. He called her his rare pearl, a white jewel pulled from the darkness of his plantation. He spoke of her as if she was something he had discovered, something that belonged to him by right. At gatherings in the big house, Thornfield displayed Miriam as one might display a rare animal. She was dressed in worn clothes made to look fine, forced to serve drinks to guests who stared openly, whispering behind gloved hands. Some looked at her with disgust, others with fascination, many with drunken amusement. Thornfield loved their discomfort. He loved gripping Miriam's arm hard enough to leave bruises while he laughed loudly. "My rare pearl," he would say, squeezing tighter as she winced. "A white spirit trapped in my fields. Isn't she something?" His guests laughed because he laughed, because laughter was safer than silence. Over time his fascination twisted into obsession. Miriam was pulled from the fields not out of kindness, but because Thornfield wanted her close. He wanted to see her, to control her, to remind himself that even something so unusual existed only by his permission. Inside the big house, her suffering deepened. She became a living decoration, forced to stand still for hours, forced to repeat words she did not know, forced to endure humiliation disguised as amusement. Thornfield enjoyed watching her shake from exhaustion. He enjoyed testing how far he could push her before she broke. Physical violence was always near, but the true damage was slower and deeper. It was what he erased inside her. To survive, Miriam learned to leave her body without moving. Her eyes would fix on some distant point, while her mind drifted far away. She remembered her mother's voice, soft and secret, telling stories of rivers that ran toward the sea, of ancestors who walked with spirits, of lands untouched by chains. Those memories became her shelter, the only place Thornfield could not reach. Her pale skin burned easily under the Virginia sun, which kept her indoors more often than not, closer to her master. Her eyes watered painfully in bright light, something Thornfield mocked as weakness, calling it sensitivity, calling it beauty. At night, when she returned to the slave quarters, she faced another kind of pain. Her own people looked at her with suspicion. To them, her appearance made her dangerous, too close to whiteness, too visible, too strange. She slept on the edge of the room, listening to whispered conversations that stopped when she shifted. Only Samuel curled beside her without fear. Through Samuel's eyes, Miriam began to see the full shape of Thornfield's cruelty. The boy worked as a water carrier in the fields. Each day he came back more tired, more silent. Whip marks began to appear on his narrow back. His laughter faded. Something inside Miriam changed as she watched him suffer. Hatred, once quiet and contained, hardened into purpose. The moment that shattered everything came on a suffocating afternoon when Thornfield entertained another landowner. Drunk and loud, eager to show off his possessions, Thornfield grabbed Miriam when she tried, just slightly, to pull away. Laughing, he spoke of selling Samuel, of trading him like a tool, a thing. The words rang in Miriam's mind like a death bell. That night, holding Samuel as he slept, Miriam made a vow that would shape everything that followed. Thornfield would not take her brother, no matter the cost. From that moment on, fear burned away, leaving something cold and sharp behind. She began to watch, and she began to plan. Here is part 2 of the 16,000-word version, continuing seamlessly. Same style, simple English, no headings, no subheadings, expanded detail. This part is 2,000 words. When ready, reply continue. For part 3, after that night, fear no longer ruled Miriam. It still existed, but it had changed shape. It was no longer something that froze her in place. It became something sharp, something useful. Fear became awareness. Awareness became preparation. From the outside, nothing about Miriam appeared different. She still moved quietly through the halls of the big house. She still lowered her eyes when spoken to. She still obeyed commands without hesitation. Thornfield saw only his rare pearl, silent and pale, a thing he believed completely broken. But behind her light eyes, Miriam was awake. She began to study the plantation, as if it were a living map unfolding before her. Every sound, every movement, every routine was measured and remembered. She paid attention to the rhythm of the days and the weakness hidden inside them. She noticed how the morning bell rang before the sun fully rose, how the overseers emerged sleepy and irritated, how the dogs were fed at the same times each day. She watched the men on horseback as they patrolled the fields. Jeremiah, the head overseer, always slowed near the barn around mid-morning to drink from his flask. Young Thomas, eager but careless, leaned against the oak tree after lunch, his eyes closing for a few stolen minutes. The dogs, lean and hungry, responded only to a certain sharp whistle from their handler. Without it, they were confused, restless, unfocused. Inside the big house, Miriam's knowledge became even more precise. She knew Thornfield locked his office door every night, but she also knew the key was hidden beneath a porcelain vase on the back porch. She knew there was a revolver in the top right drawer of his desk, but she also knew it was rarely loaded. She knew he drank heavily after supper, whiskey poured again and again until his speech slowed and his thoughts dulled. She knew the household servants retired exactly at 10, leaving him alone with his ledgers and his bottle. Every detail was placed carefully inside her mind, like stones arranged for a crossing that had not yet been made. She also watched the enslaved people around her. She learned who had given up completely and who still carried a spark. Some would betray anyone for a scrap of favor. Others whispered songs of freedom when they thought no one listened. Miriam learned to tell the difference by watching eyes, not mouths. Time pressed against her like a closing hand. Thornfield spoke often of money, of losses, of trade. Twice in 1 month a slave trader named Collins visited the estate. He wore dark clothes and smiled too easily. Each visit made Miriam's chest tighten with dread. Each time, she feared she would hear Samuel's name spoken aloud. It was after Collins's second visit that Miriam found the knife. She was sent to the barn to fetch supplies. While searching among old harnesses and rusted tools, her fingers brushed against cold metal. Hidden beneath straw and dust lay a skinning knife. Its handle was woe. RN smooth from use. The blade, though stained with age, was still sharp. Miriam held it for a long moment, feeling its weight, its balance. It was meant for animals, for labor. But in her hand it became something else entirely. She hid the knife beneath loose boards in the quarters that night. From that moment on, sleep came rarely. Instead, her nights became rehearsals. She lay still, eyes open in the dark, walking through every step in her mind. The path to the office, the sound of the floor, the timing of breath, the exact movements required. She also chose who would leave with her. Joseph, the blacksmith, whose hands were strong enough to break iron. Abigail, the midwife, who knew every root and leaf that healed or harmed. Benjamin, once a fisherman, who could read the stars like words on a page. Martha, quiet and determined, whose sister had escaped north years earlier. Elijah, young but steady, and Samuel, 6 souls, each chosen not by chance but by necessity. Miriam did not speak openly to them. That would have been dangerous. Instead, she communicated in glances, small touches, moments that meant nothing to others but everything to them. A nod to Joseph, a brush of fingers against Abigail's sleeve. A look held a second too long. Be ready. A storm helped her confirm what she already suspected. One night, thunder tore through the sky. Lightning struck a tree near the quarters, sending panic across the estate. Overseers shouted. Dogs barked wildly. In the chow. Miriam noticed something important. The northwest fence was left unguarded for nearly 20 minutes. 20 minutes was an eternity. From then on, the plan became real. She memorized every step of the escape route, the safest paths through fields, where the ground dipped low enough to hide, where water could be found. She watched the moon's cycle carefully, waiting for a night without light. What she could not plan was the storm inside her. In the final days before the chosen night, Miriam sat beside Samuel often, watching him sleep. His face was thinner than it should have been. Bruises marked his small body. She whispered prayers in a language half remembered, words her mother had taught her in secret. She asked the ancestors to guide her hands, to steady her heart, to forgive what she was about to do. When the night finally came, the air felt heavy, as if the land itself was waiting. After the 10 o'clock bell rang, and the house grew quiet, Miriam rose. She moved slowly, carefully, every motion deliberate. She wore a dark tunic stolen days earlier from the laundry. She retrieved the knife from beneath the floorboards. The cold metal against her palm grounded her. Leaving the quarters was the first test. The door creaked softly as she opened it. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Miriam froze, heart hammering, breath trapped in her chest. She listened. A dog barked once in the distance, then silence. She stepped outside. The path to the big house was empty, lit only by dying embers from overseers' fires. Miriam avoided the main road, cutting instead through the herb garden. Rosemary and sage crushed beneath her feet, their scent masking her presence. The night sharpened her senses. She heard insects humming, frogs calling from the creek, the soft rustle of unseen creatures. When the great house came into view, a single window glowed yellow. Thornfield was awake, just as she had planned. Entering the house was easier than she expected. The pantry window's latch gave way with gentle pressure. Inside, the smell of flour and spice hung in the air. Hunger did not touch her, only focus. The polished floors creaked softly beneath her feet. She tested each step before committing her weight. Through half-open doors, she glimpsed rooms filled with silver and imported furniture. Every object was soaked in stolen labor. As she reached the corridor near Thornfield's office, she heard him inside. The scrape of his chair, the pour of whiskey, his low humming, careless and drunk. Then, nearly, everything went wrong. Her tunic caught on a heavy silver candelabrum. It tipped, began to fall. With reflexes she did not know she had, Miriam caught it mid-air, freezing in place. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared it would give her away. Seconds stretched endlessly. Nothing happened. She set the object down carefully. The danger sharpened her further. This was real. There would be no second chance. She reached the office door. It was sly, tightly open. Inside, Thornfield sat with his back turned, reaching for a cigar that had rolled across the table. That movement gave her everything she needed. Miriam stepped inside. The rope flew silently, and the world changed forever.